I will walk you through the answers now for the Kahoot. The first question was cosine of 5 pi over 6. And so first thing I'm going to do is convert that back to degree speak. So pi is 180 degrees. If you divide that by 6, we get 30. If you multiply that by 5, you get 30 times 5, which is 150 degrees. Once I realize that, I know I'm in the second quadrant, and the reference angle of 150 is 30 degrees, so it's related to the cosine of 30, except that it's going to be a negative number because you're in the second quadrant. Now I have to remember the cosine of 30. I have this burned into my memory, this relationship of a 1, 2, root 3 triangle. Here's the 30-degree angle. The cosine is going to be negative root 3 over 2, which was one of the answers. The second question was, is the cosine of 299 is a negative value? Is a true or false question? And all I have to do is figure out what quadrant I'm in. Well, 299 degrees is beyond 270, and so you're in somewhere in the fourth quadrant. Cosine in the fourth quadrant is a positive number, so this is a false statement. I think most of you found number 3 to be the most challenging problem of the Kahoot. This was a statement, a true or false statement, whether the sine of 167 is larger than the sine of 157. Well, again, 167 is roughly here, and 157 is before that. And the question is, what are you comparing? Well, the sine gives you the y-coordinate. This y-coordinate is higher than the other y-coordinate, so this is another false statement. Number 4 was asking for the secant of 3 pi over 4. That's 1 over the cosine of that angle. This is 180 degrees. Cut it into fourths, and that's going to be half of 90 or 45. So that's going to be 135. The cosine of 135 is 1 over root 2. So 1 over that ends up being root 2, except that you're in the second quadrant, so that's a negative number, and that's a negative number, so that is the final answer. Tan of 5 pi over 3 was number 5, and again, I usually convert that into degree speak, so pi is equivalent to 180 degrees, and if you divide that by 3, you get 60, and 5 60s is 300 degrees, and then I'm asking for the tan of that. Well, this is related to the tangent of 300 degrees. You are 60 degrees from 360. You always measure reference angles from how far you are from the x-axis, so it's related to the tan of 60. Again, I go back to my triangle. This is the way I like to do it. This is going to be basically 1, 2, and root 3. And so the tangent of 60 degrees is going to be root 3 over 1. And then I have to think about what quadrant I'm in. I'm in the fourth quadrant, so tangent's negative. That's the answer to that problem. In number 6, they ask you to find another angle in the window between 0 and 360 where the sine of that angle is the same as the sine of 210. First of all, I realize that 210 is in the third quadrant and that the reference angle of 210 is 30 degrees. So this is going to be the sine, the angle has to be some angle that has a 30 degree. But remember, sine is a negative number, and it's a positive number in the first and second. So the angle I'm looking for has to be in the fourth quadrant, but it has to have a reference angle of 30 degrees. So basically, it had to be 330. And that's the answer we were looking for in that problem. In number 7, they say the cosine is equal to negative 1/2. What various angles A can actually make that a true statement? So again, a small drawing will help me, but this is 1 and 2 and root 3 in a right triangle. and the angle A has to be this one right here. So there's a drawing where the cosine A equals negative 1/2, and that angle is a 60-degree angle. So the reference angle is a reference angle of 60 degrees, but I have to be negative. Well, cosine is negative again in the second and third quadrants. So that would be 180 minus 60, or 120, and 180 plus 60, which would be 240. Those are the two answers of that question. In number 8, they ask you what quadrant is the cosecant negative. Well, cosecant is 1 over sine, and therefore sine would have to be negative. That'd be the third or the fourth. And the secant is positive. The secant is 1 over cosine, and for that to be positive, cosine would have to be positive, which is in the first or the fourth. And so we now realize for both of those things to happen, you have to be in the fourth quadrant. Number 9 probably took the most time of any of the problems. I told you that the tan of A was negative 2/3. I also told you that you were in the between 90 degrees and 180 degrees, so you're in the second quadrant. And the way to do this problem is you draw a little mini picture and you make the tangent of the A equals 2 over third. This is not A, this is the reference angle for A. It gives you the same ratios. If that's true, then by the Pythagorean theorem, this would be the square root of 4 plus 9, which is 13. So the sine ratio would be 2 over square root of 13. Now I have to figure out whether it's a positive or a negative number. Since I'm in the second quadrant, sine has to be a positive number. That's the answer for that problem. And lastly, in number 10, they ask you for the range of this function. We now know that it is the plus 3 means that I'm going to start up here at 3. That's the new midline. And we now know that that 4 stretches it vertically so that you go up 4 from 3 and down 4 from 3, giving you this window or range of possible y values. And the range is between -1 and 7.